As we continue in our journey through the book of Ephesians, we're now up to the armor of God. And today's session is going to be all about the belt of truth. I don't know about you, but I find truth is just really under attack. People are like, well, whatever is right for you, whatever feels good for you, that's true for you. Reality is, people have the right to believe whatever they want to believe. God gave us free will, He gave us free choice. So people can choose to use that free will however they want. There's consequences for those choices, but they're free to make those choices. But the reality is that doesn't change what truth is. Just because we don't want to believe something is true doesn't make it not true. So here as Christians, we are told to stand firm and put on the sturdy belt of truth. The reality is that when you're in a situation, you speak truth into that situation. Truth stands. We've got to speak truth with love, compassion, and kindness. But when you speak truth, you've got to let it just do its thing. Sometimes speak it and walk away so that it has time to flourish in people's hearts, time for them to wrestle between what is true and what they're believing, for them to go, yep, it was true. So there was a few things when I was studying about the belt of truth that I just found absolutely fascinating. So to start off with, let's talk about the Roman soldiers' armory and what the belt in their armory actually symbolized. So the reason why I'm pulling on the Roman soldiers' armory is we believe that when Paul penned this letter to the church in Ephesus, that he was actually under house arrest in Rome, chained to an Emporium guard. An Emporium guard was the elite, the top of the Roman soldiers. So he was chained next to somebody who was wearing the full Roman uniform. And part of that Roman uniform was the belt. And the Roman soldiers were quite visible. They were out and about when Paul wrote this letter. So people really had an image in their head of what the Roman soldiers' uniform looked like because they saw it. They saw it regularly. So the belt in the Roman soldiers' weaponry, armory, uniform, whatever's going to be the appropriate word, that symbolized that they were part of the Roman army. They wore this belt when they were on and off duty. They always wore the belt. How cool is that? That the very first piece that Paul tells them to put on is the piece that turns around and tells everybody what army you are part of. When we become a Christian, we are part of God's army. Yes, we're the bride of Christ. Yes, we're children of God. But we are also part of God's army, which is why we put on the armor of God. First off, this first piece we're putting on, it identifies that we are part of this army. Now, the other part of the belt that I found fascinating is it has the holder, the container, the place for the only attacking weaponry to be held. So the sword is placed inside the belt. So our sword of the Spirit, which we're going to cover, what does that actually mean in a few sessions' time, our only attacking piece of weaponry is held in place by truth. And this is why truth matters. Truth is at the core. of everything. Now, I was always brought up being taught that in the Romans armory, the belt held everything together. So I was trying to do a bit of a research to go, is that actually true? I couldn't clarify that in my research, so I don't know if that was true or not. But I definitely know that the belt had some nice strong leather pieces so that it didn't ride up under the weight of the sword. How cool is that? The belt was so sturdy that it could handle the weight of the sword. Now, in the Bible, the word truth, I did a bit of a word search to go, how many times does this word actually appear? So I jumped over to the Strong's Concordance and I looked up the word that Paul used here for truth. Now, the word that Paul uses, it's obviously a Greek word, so it's obviously only in the New Testament. But in the New Testament, this word is there 110 times over 99 verses. And the Old Testament, the Hebrew equivalent for the word truth in the Old Testament is there 127 times in 125 verses. So the Bible really does have a lot to say about truth. Now, I've picked that we're going to read one passage in particular. It's a bit of a longer passage, but this passage really just encompasses truth versus a lie. So let's turn to John chapter 8, and we're going to read from verses 31 through to 47. Jesus said to the people who believe in him, "You are truly my disciples if you keep obeying my teachings, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." "But we are descendants of Abraham," they said. "We have never been slaves to anyone on earth." "What do you mean, set free?" Jesus replied, "I assure you that everyone who sins is a slave to sin. A slave is not a permanent member of the family, but a son is part of the family forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will indeed be free. Yes, I realize that you are descendants of Abraham, and yet some of you are trying to kill me because of my message does not find place in your hearts. I am telling you what I saw when I was with my father, but you are following the advice of your father." "Our father is Abraham," they declared. "No," Jesus replied. "For if you were children of Abraham, you would follow his good example. I told you the truth I heard from God, but you are trying to kill me. Abraham wouldn't do a thing like that. No, you're obeying your real father when you act that way." They replied, "We were not born out of wedlock. Our true father is God himself." Jesus told them, "If God were your father, you would love me because I have come from God. I am not here on my own, but he sent me. Why can't you understand what I am saying? It is because you're unable to do so. For you are the children of your father, the devil, and you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning and has always hated the truth. There is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So when I tell you the truth, you just naturally don't believe me. Which of you can truthfully accuse me of sin? And since I am telling you the truth, why don't you believe me? Anyone whose father is God listens gladly to the words of God. Since you don't, it proves you aren't God's children." Pretty heavy words that Jesus says here. but it really sums up truth. Jesus is truth. And Jesus declares, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through Jesus. Satan is the father of lies. So here, Paul over in Ephesians is telling us to put on that sturdy belt of truth. But what I really want you to sit and reflect and meditate on is the lies that you tell. Jesus is truth. Satan is the father of lies. Yeah, Jesus is telling these Jews who their father was Abraham, no, your father is actually Satan, because you're lying and you don't believe the truth that is being told to you. So I want to put that challenge out to you as well. What comes out of your mouth? Does truth come out of your mouth? Or do lies come out of your mouth? Because what comes out of the mouth, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So who you are following with your heart is going to show in your words. It's going to show by if you're speaking truth or if you're speaking lies. Just want to put that out there as a challenge, just for you to reflect, meditate on, take it to God, and see if that challenges you to want to change your behaviors a little bit, or whether you're like, okay, yep, God, I'm going to stand firm in these evil days by putting on the belt of truth.